Yes, people, you know what time it is, you know what it is. It's G, and I am back in the building. We are on the road to 900 subscribers. Big up everybody who has obviously subscribed to the channel already. And if you are brand new to my channel, please make sure you hit that subscribe button. As today, we are going to get into Liverpool's monthly review for August and September. Obviously, Liverpool have played 4 games prior to the international break. Got themselves 3 wins and a draw in that time. Obviously, we've been able to see the new signings obviously get themselves embedded in. So Szoboszlai, McAllister. Obviously, we got that deadline day signing of Gravenberch as well. Endo obviously thrown in there. Couple of injuries. Obviously, we'll talk about that in a second. We've had a couple of red cards, one rescinded, one's obviously going to be impacted after the international break. But guys, make sure you're obviously smashing a like. We're going to get into the monthly review. Let me know also in the comment section, people, how do you guys think, that first month, or month and a bit, how do you feel that went for Liverpool? Are we happy with what we're seeing in terms of the playing style? Are we happy with obviously the points on the board? Obviously, we'll take a look at the table, how it looks. Obviously, it's only 4 games, so not to get too excited, but it's always good to see, where you're at, just before that first international break. Anyway, let me know what you guys obviously think in the comment section. Let's get into it.
Now you know I'm coming through. When the growth look good on you, best believe they wanna screw now. I've been trying to climb, devil threw me in the dark. Baby, don't be insecure, you can still go make a mark like blow. Could never let them drain my soul now. Blow. Table turning like doorknobs, wow. Blow. I think I'm about to set sail. I'm a walking, living legend, walking with my chest out. Life keep dealing me cards, I keep fitting in love.
Yes, people. Yes, as I said, quick Liverpool, monthly review. Just taking a look, really, how that first month kind of went. Everything obviously, all going on. Transfer window obviously being done. Transfer window still obviously in play. Whilst the Premier League had obviously started. We've seen all the players, move. Certain clubs. We've seen obviously Saudi come in and take a couple of Liverpool players, but also other players from different clubs and things like that. Just before we obviously dive in terms of like a general overview of how I kind of looked at this month, I think it's been a good month for Liverpool, 100%, to play 4 games, won 3 of those, and, got themselves a draw, first game of the season against Chelsea, which is a tough place to go regardless of the state of play, over there at Stamford Bridge. I think it's been a decent month. Yeah, do you know what I mean? I think it has generally been, a decent month. I'll give my rating for the first month of football at the end of the video. But yeah, you can't really complain. You really can't complain. I think anything to really complain about would just more be about the football. But and big up ends, something he mentioned, and quite a lot of people have mentioned as well. At the end of the day, beginning of the season, what you really want to be doing is getting yourself, the points, on the board, so that at least if you're not playing that well, which I don't think Liverpool are, as long as you're not playing that well, but you're getting the points on the board, no problem. Because what you then hope later on in the season is that when you are clicking, and hopefully Liverpool click, hopefully after this international break, but when you do start to click, boom, you've already got the points on the board. You're not struggling, a bit like how we were, in the 22-23 season. Liverpool started really poorly, in that season, not playing well, injuries, not really getting the points on the board. I remember the defeat to Manchester United, a draw against Crystal Palace, draw against Fulham. It was just really, really bad, during that period of time. And I think now we're able to get those points on the board. It's an improvement. It's definitely, an improvement, from Liverpool in regards to the previous season. So not really too much to complain about. As I mentioned before, me, I'm a bit of a stickler, in terms of playing and stuff like that, sustainability and all these kind of different things. But if we're just, talking in isolation at the beginning of the season, I can't really have too many complaints. Liverpool been doing all right. We're sitting up there at the top echelons of the table at this current moment in time. We're not even playing that well. So I'm hoping that this just means that, throughout the next bit of the season, so, from September, October, hopefully we can just continue picking up the points. Hopefully we play better, but ultimately, if we're not going to play better, just get the points on the board. Listen, I would love Liverpool to scummy their way towards the end of the season and win the league, as an example. Because if we don't play well and we win the league, one, it will show how crap the league is, but it will also show that Liverpool can still get points on the board. And I don't think that's really ever been really questioned, so to speak. Because even in the previous season, in the 22-23 season, you kind of always, it was like everybody was waiting for Liverpool to go on that kind of run. Obviously, we did that run a bit too late, towards the end of the season, weren't really able to, make that top four. But everyone kind of, it's like you were just waiting for it to come. Every week you're like, okay, is it going to come now? Liverpool would get like 2 or 3 wins potentially in a row, and then they would lose or they would draw or whatever the case may be. But then towards the end of the season, obviously we're still on I think it's a 15-game unbeaten run. Someone let me know in the comment. But I think it's about 15 games. Liverpool have obviously been unbeaten up until this point, if you're looking at towards the back end of last season and beginning of this. So again, like I said, it's not too much to really complain about in terms of getting points on the board. And ultimately, at the end of the day, as much as I might moan, about the way that Liverpool play and stuff like that, I don't actually really even care if you can get the points on the board. Like I said, if you can scummy your way, towards the end of the league, end of the season, should I say? Sorry. Yeah, I'm good with that. Yeah, I mean, I'll just have to take that, and I can't complain. I really, really and truly, can't complain, about that. But obviously, we look to, the first game of the season that was against Chelsea. Obviously, Liverpool getting themselves a 1-1 draw at Stamford Bridge. Obviously, there was a lot of talk. We had the new signings, McAllister and Szoboszlai, obviously coming into play. We didn't really know in terms of styles, what the hell Liverpool going to do. I think I remember Jurgen Klopp mentioning that he had a tactic and stuff like that for that first game of the season. So everything was a little bit up in the air. I remember at the beginning of the season trying to think. Everything was a little bit up in the air in terms of what we were actually going to do, what Liverpool was realistically going to come out. Now, I know, obviously, it was a 1-1. If we look back at that game in itself, yes, it's a tough place to go. Do I feel we deserved the draw? I think Chelsea just edged it, in my personal opinion. So I feel like we were quite lucky to actually get that draw in that game. Chelsea, in my opinion, deserved to win, but ultimately we got the draw. And again, that's the most important things. Even when you're not playing well, can you still get that point at least, as the bare minimum? And then you're able to obviously move forward and then, go from there. So yeah, I think that we were able to kind of do that. So, again, not too many, complaints, so to speak, because we got the draw. If we had lost, then of course, that's when you start, picking the holes out of these kind of things. But, we had Gakpo playing in midfield in that game, which we've seen doesn't really work, for Liverpool. Szoboszlai obviously making his debut, McAllister the same thing. Trent obviously playing in his whatever inverted kind of position. Again, a lot of talk about Trent Alexander-Arnold throughout the summer. Where is he going to play? Is he going to be the new DM? Is he going to play in that inverted role? Like we didn't really know. Is Klopp going to persist with kind of this 3 at the back that he's kind of doing? Again, like I said, first game of the season, there are so many questions. And from what I can remember as well, for every Liverpool fan, from what I was seeing, was that we were just more concerned with, can we just get a DM? That's all we cared about. Can we get a DM? Because we need a DM. We're still looking vulnerable, which I still think is the case now. Liverpool still do look very, very vulnerable in defensive transitions. But that was the main thing. It was, can we get a DM? Can we get a DM? Can we play with these players? Can we not have we have a DM, but it's not what people, I guess, wanted in terms of that specialist. Although a specialist DM could be in many forms. I wouldn't call Rodri a destroyer. I wouldn't have called Busquets a destroyer. I wouldn't call like a Modric the destroyer. And these guys can play in the DM kind of position. So, you can get different types of DMs. And I think that's something that we all just need to admit and just kind of understand as well, that you can have different types. It doesn't have to be a destroyer. But Liverpool fans, we kind of wanted that destroyer, in that midfield, because we had all the other ballers, the McAllister, the Szoboszlai. Now we've got Gravenberch in, and Trent obviously coming into play, Curtis Jones, Thiago, Bajcetic. We've got all of these players who are ballers, who are good technical kind of players, people who like to get the ball down and play some football. But it's like we felt that we needed that, when the reality is, do we really need that? That's really a question for you guys. Do you really need that in your team, or can you not just play with the players? If the tactics are right, I can't see why not, because these guys are decent players. So I think that was one of the main things that I kind of took away, especially from that first game, but obviously everything preceding that in terms of the transfer window and all that kind of stuff. But ultimately Liverpool got that draw. Then obviously We move on to Liverpool's next game, and that was against Bournemouth, a 3-1 victory. Really, really good game in terms of getting the goals that we needed in that game. I think Luis Diaz and Salah obviously scored. I can't remember who got the last goal of that game, but yeah, decent game. Overall, it was more of an overall. It was okay when you think about it in retrospect, but there was a little bit of issues I felt, within that game. Again, I almost felt that like Bournemouth were a little bit dangerous. If I'm being 100% honest with you, they were a little bit dangerous, in terms of the way that they were playing, the way that, again, they were able to cut through. Obviously, they scored the first goal. They had a goal disallowed, before they even scored that first goal. This all happened within like the first 2 or 3 minutes of the game. But, Liverpool at home, able to settle down. And then we kind of just got into a little bit of rhythm. We had a decent passage of play in totality, in the game. But, there was still, it's so weird, I'll probably go deeper into it at the end of this. But yeah, it was a little bit weird, but ultimately we got the victory. So again, not too much to realistically complain about, in that kind of regards. I think second game of the season, again, it's so early in the season. I really think until you get to like 10 plus games, there's not much to really go on when it comes to these kind of games and matches and stuff like that. I think that's where you've just got to pray you just get the points on the board. Obviously, we can't all be unfortunately, we can't all be playing, sexy football and all that kind of stuff, tiki-taka and, all these kind of things and et cetera, et cetera. But ultimately, Liverpool were able to get the victory. Then we move on to the Darwin Núñez double. This is for all the Darwin Núñez fans out there who are extremely happy, as rightfully so, to be honest with you, rightfully so. Obviously, Darwin Núñez getting himself 2 goals for Liverpool after we went 1-0 down to Anthony Gordon. This is obviously the game that Van Dijk got himself sent off in. So, you're looking at that. You're kind of looking at, the up until, would I say, we scored, we were dominating the ball, but without any real penetration, if I'm being told. It was just more, we had the ball quite a lot in that game before we scored anyway. We had a lot of the ball. I wouldn't even say Newcastle were breaking us down like that, to be honest with you. I remember an Almiron shot where he had a little bit of a dribble, ghosted past McAllister, cut inside as he got further toward the edge of the box, took a shot, hit the post. That goes in. It's 2-0 Newcastle. Game absolutely done. Liverpool not coming back into the game. I think they also had another chance, an opportunity where Harvey Barnes was through on goal. Should have squared it to Callum Wilson. Didn't. That move kind of ended. Again, Liverpool catching life. This is obviously when we went down to 10 men at this point as well. So it was a little bit frantic in that kind of sense. But as an overall, in totality, again, I felt like we were in some type of control. But it wasn't a comfortable game at all. And it shouldn't be. It's at St. James's Park. That's a tough place to go. It doesn't matter what state of play that they're in. It's still always going to be a tough place to go. But, Núñez coming on, 2 brilliant goals, absolutely brilliant goals. Like, I criticize him all the time. You guys already know my feelings on Darwin Núñez, but you cannot take away from those finishes that he had against Newcastle. So, that was excellent. And it was like one of those victories. It was almost like a coming together, kind of thing, when you looked at it and, the way that we celebrated and, everything that kind of happened in the game with the sending off and Gordon, that situation with Trent Alexander-Arnold, also with Trent Alexander-Arnold, should he have been sent off? Like, there was so much going on in that kind of game that to get a victory at St. James's Park, 10 men, to snatch it from them. Yeah, that was kind of sweet. I can't even lie to you. That was definitely sweet. But again, like I said, able to get the 3 points. Do I think we played that well? No, not really. I think in those first 3 games, again, to be honest, I don't think we have really up until our next game against Villa, which I'll get into in a moment. But again, it really doesn't matter. It actually, at this point, I think for the first even 10 games, really, I think at this point, yes, we can look at the way that Liverpool play and potentially not be happy with it if you're not happy with it and whatever. And there's going to be nice passages of play within that anyway. But ultimately, get the points on the board. Let's worry about the other stuff later on, down the line. So, and I think that's kind of what we did, in this Newcastle game. So again, Liverpool, after those 3 games, you're getting yourself, 6-7 points. So, you can't really complain. Also having to have gone to Stamford Bridge, St. James's Park, you ain't really complaining too tough. Then obviously we get to the Aston Villa game, 3-0 victory, complete domination in this game. This was probably the only game that we've had so far where I've really felt like there was domination, but there was purpose. There was real purpose kind of behind it. I wasn't able to do a match review after that, but yeah, looking at that kind of game, I generally did feel that it was one of those kind of games that you just kind of felt everything just came together. In my personal opinion, everything really did just kind of come together in that kind of game. Having all that domination, in the game, and there's been a lot of talk again with Aston Villa and Newcastle and Chelsea. These kind of teams, especially Newcastle and Aston Villa, there had been a lot of talk, in preseason, myself included, where we thought that. I mean, look, you're playing against Liverpool anyway, so it's going to be tough regardless. But when you're coming up against an Aston Villa side, we saw them towards the back end of the season. If we're taking the same context that we took with Liverpool, everyone's saying, "Oh, Liverpool look like they're back because of back end of last season." We had to look at Aston Villa and think they're going to be really, really good. This season. Under Unai Emery, the way that they were playing, the way that they were set up. But they came to Liverpool, and the only thing I'll say is that they came to Liverpool and played into Liverpool's hands, which really confused me in that game. I was like, "You're going to come to Anfield first and foremost, and you're going to play a high line. We're going to kill you all the time, every time. Like, we've got the players up front who can cause you damage, even on a bad day." Do you know what I'm trying to say? But then you come to Anfield. I get why you've done it. I do understand why. Obviously, I understand why we play a high line. You know what I mean? It's to excuse me, obviously to kind of close the gap, really and truly. Obviously you give away behind you, but if you can close the gap in there, and obviously that then depends on how you then press within that midfield, how then your attackers then press and stuff like that. And Villa were doing that pretty well at points in the game, but it was at points in the game. They weren't really doing it again in the overall kind of thing, where in the overall match, where they were able to kind of sustain that, because we were able to just really and truly bypass that. And then I think the movement that we had within the game, Szoboszlai dropping into different positions, then you had obviously Mo Salah out there on the wings, Luis Diaz, even Darwin Núñez, started up top that game, probably deservedly so after his exploits against Newcastle. With his kind of runs, you're playing a high line. I mean, if you ain't got pacey like defenders in every single position, it's going to be difficult, and when you've got like players like McAllister who can drop deep, find a pass, all these kind of various different things, I just felt like you just played into Liverpool's hands. It didn't really make sense. They're kind of like, it's like, I understand why they did it, but I don't understand why you do it against Liverpool. Do you know what I mean? Like, I just felt like you didn't have the players to really implement that kind of style against Liverpool. Maybe against other teams, I can see why you would do that, but against Liverpool, yeah, I just didn't really understand it, in my personal opinion. But Unai Emery will tell you different. I don't know what he said after the game, but for Liverpool it was a complete domination, absolute complete domination, deserved victory. Szoboszlai obviously getting his first goal for the football club. Everyone talking about him, in a general sense. Very, very good player, really, really like him. Deserved goal. He probably needed a goal. Like to see him get a few more goals, obviously, towards the end between now and the end of the season. So it was decent. It was very, very decent, man. Very, very decent. Very, very good display. But yeah, that was kind of Liverpool's first 4 games of the season up until the international break. Obviously, now I'll quickly just share my screen and just show you guys the league table. Just quickly get that up for you guys, so we can take a quick look at what it looks like for Liverpool at the moment. Hopefully you guys can see this. Let's just large up the screen. Yeah, for you guys can see it anyway. I mean, you guys already know. For those who like to check the table after game week 1, you guys probably already know. But obviously we can see here the league table for the Premier League. Man City top, 4 wins out of 4. Tottenham in second place via goal difference. Literally just 1 more than Liverpool. Played 4-1-3, drawn 1, same as Liverpool, same as West Ham, and same as Arsenal. So 4 teams on the same amount of points. And then obviously got Brighton just in behind there with 3 wins and a loss. And then Crystal Palace obviously down there, 2 wins, 1 draw, and a loss. But when we're looking at Liverpool here, you can see played the 4 games, got ourselves 9 goals, as I kind of expected. 3 goals conceded, as I kind of expected. So again, looking at the table, really nothing to really complain about. If I'm being vaguely honest, there really isn't much. We've got more goals than Arsenal. We've conceded less. You know what I mean? And everyone's obviously talking about Arsenal in terms of title challenges and stuff like that. Again, it's only 4 games, so I'm not going overboard or anything like that. The only team that I'm like looking at and I'm like, yeah, I expect them to be there is Manchester City. To be honest with you, I expect first 4 games, 11 goals, 2 goals conceded, you know, absolutely phenomenal, you know, from them. But ultimately, I think we're doing really, really good. We're doing really, really good. There isn't anything really in terms of when you just look at the table, just looking at it now, isn't really nothing to really complain about. Are there any real surprises in there? I mean, you got Manchester United down in the 11th, played 4, won 2, lost 2. So, you know, that's Manchester United. Chelsea, you know, down there as well. You know, got a couple of losses on their name. Newcastle down there as well. Again, another team that, as I mentioned before, that everyone's looking at and stuff like that in terms of whether we think that they're going to be, you know, up there in that top 4 battle, Champions League battle. Again, it's only 4 games. Just want to keep reiterating that it's only 4 games, so no one's getting too excited. But again, it's just interesting to look at how things are. Obviously, the teams that you play and stuff like that. Of course, there's going to be a lot of twists and turns, you know, in the season. But you know, it makes for good reading. It does make, you know, for good reading. So, as I mentioned, man, nothing really to complain about, you know, in that kind of first month and a bit, you know, for Liverpool moving forward. If I share my screen again with you guys, and we just take a look at the next up and coming games, you know, to the next international break. Yes, I know, another one. It's really, really annoying. That's actually one thing that really jars me is the amount of bloody international breaks that you've got. And there's so many, like we had so many pointless friendlies, England versus Scotland. I was like, I don't care about any of that. Do you know what I mean? Like, no disrespect to both England or Scotland, but there needs to be for me, yeah, and I'm going a little bit off topic. For me, there needs to be like a period of time, you know, in the season where we just have all of your international games that you need to have, kind of thing, and then we can worry about the other stuff later, man. Like you can have a period of time where it's just all your Nation League, the South Americans, their stuff, the Africans, whatever. Everybody have this period. So whether it's for a set period of time, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever it is, have all of that, then play all the games you need to play. Boom. Let every country, especially in Europe, but let all the countries then focus on their league football, and then you have another set of games where it's then all friendlies and stuff like that. And then we can do, you know, you can do that all over again. You know, do you know what I mean? It's just, I just think all of the breaks, play for, it's so much football that these guys are obviously having to play that it's eventually in the season, you know, it takes its toll. It really does take its toll, but it is what it is. As they say, it is what it is. Obviously, this weekend we've got the Wolves versus Liverpool game. Again, Liverpool 12:30 kickoff. Interesting, very, very interesting. We know Liverpool's record 12:30 kickoffs last season, absolutely atrocious. God, I remember that Nottingham Forest game like it was yesterday. Yeah, so not really looking too forward to it. The omens don't really bode well for Liverpool, if I'm being 100% honest, but I do think Liverpool will get the victory in that game. Obviously, make sure you guys obviously head on over to the Jerry James Show. I'm sure by the time this video is posted out, he would have done his match review. But if not, then yeah, make sure you stay tuned to his match review. Then we start the Europa League. Thursday night football. God, can't wait for that. You can see the excitement in my face. Can't wait for Thursday night football. Can't wait to be doing Thursday night watches, looking at teams like Lask and, you know, all these kind of other various teams. I don't want to be disrespectful, but yeah, a competition that I think Liverpool will be looking at towards the end of the season as winners. If I'm being totally honest with you, obviously I don't know the Champions League setup in terms of who might get knocked down. Obviously we'd have to wait and see. But at the moment, if you just looked at the teams, you'd probably say Liverpool look like probably the front runners in that competition. As of right now, of course, we've got to wait until, you know, 2024, the beginning of then, to then really know who else is going to be in Liverpool, who Liverpool may face in the knockout stages and stuff like that. Liverpool shouldn't face any real problems in these kind of games. Only thing I'm really interested in these kind of matches, I mean, it's a 5:45 kickoff, which isn't really great, but in these kind of matches, what I'm looking at is the rotation. How do we look when we are rotated? That's what I'm really, really, really looking at. Jurgen Klopp and the staff and the team. Are we good enough to rotate as much as people want us to rotate? Because I know everybody wants everybody, all the first teamers, Van Dijks, the Salahs, the Diaz, Szoboszlai, McAllister, all these guys. I know everyone wants them to be dropped, and then we can just play, other players. We see Ben Doak is obviously a part of the Europa League list. I think Bobby Clark is. I think he's a part of the list. Obviously, Curtis Jones. All these guys. Let's see what they do in this kind of competition. I don't want to disrespect it because I feel like a lot of us are disrespecting it a little bit and just believing that we should be good enough with our second base players. Obviously, I don't know. Let's wait and see. Maybe we are. And that's what I really want to see. Maybe we are, good enough with our second rate, or I don't want to say second rate, with our rotation players, with our rotational players. Maybe we're good enough to just go out there and put them out. But people need to understand the Europa League is not just an easy competition. Like, I've seen top teams go in there and it ain't looked too gravy for them. Do you know what I mean? And they've ended up having to play their stronger squads anyway because they can't really get the job done with their, rotation players, because certain teams are playing their strongest teams, and they're up against Liverpool. It's a big game for Lats. Big match. So we've just got to be a little bit careful. You know what I mean? I think Klopp's clever enough to understand that, though. I think he'll notice that and he'll get that. That we it can't just be a fully. I don't think it's going to be a full 11 rotated. Do you know what I mean? I don't think he would do something like that. He will put a couple of pieces in there, just to make sure. Maybe if we qualify, no problem. If we've qualified from the group after, say, 4 games or whatever it is, and then we can just play, then that's a different story. Then you'll see a heavily rotated side, as you should. Save all the legs that you possibly can. But for the first few games, we just got to, tread carefully. But, we'll wait and see. It's different than the Champions League. Champions League is like, obviously, you usually play your strongest team from the jump and then try to rotate. Here, I feel that maybe the way that Klopp wants to do is we'll rotate and then play our strongest players later on down the line. But he's going to have to figure that part out. And yeah, we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see, on that one. Our next Premier League game after that, the second one that we've got after Wolves, is we've got West Ham at home. Hammers are doing really well this season, as I mentioned before. Had a really good start. Can they continue that? Obviously remains to be seen. It'll be a difficult test. It'll be a really difficult test against West Ham. They are one of those just tricky kind of teams, Kate in there, Mikel Antonio, obviously in there, Jarrod Bowen in there. Obviously, I know they've lost Declan Rice, but they just still seem to be a difficult team to play against. They got in James Ward-Prowse, so again, we're going to have to tread really carefully in terms of set pieces, because they might be looking for that quite a lot against the Liverpool side, and also maybe potentially stopping someone like a James Ward-Prowse getting on the ball and stuff like that, because he can easily hurt us, with his type of delivery. So it will be interesting to see how that kind of game goes. Very interesting, actually, especially with our high line. We all know Mikel Antonio is a runner, so we'll wait and see. But that's obviously our second Premier League game. Then we start our Carabao Cup campaign this season against Leicester at home. Again, just like the Europa League, I think we're going to see a heavily rotated side. I think that will be a lot more rotated, I think, than the Europa League. I don't really care about the Carabao Cup. I don't really care about the Carabao or the FA Cup, but especially the Carabao Cup. So for me, that's where I'm rotating the entire 11. Win, lose, it don't really matter to me. You know what I mean? If anything, if we lose, probably better for us, because then you can keep more players fit. I know everyone says trophy, but context, man, context. Do you know what I mean? It's like, if we have a good enough squad, like Manchester City had a good enough squad that they could go out there, win the Premier League, win the League Cup, win the FA Cup, because they got a very good squad who don't get injured that much and still have good, fantastic rotation players. I don't feel like we have fantastic rotation players. And even the young players, they still need to work their way up. Maybe this is the season, though. Maybe this is the season that these players come to fruition and we can see a little bit more about these guys, and then they can push on. But I do want, and I feel this is the kind of game where you play a Jarell Kwanzaa, Ben Doak 100% has to start. Those kind of Bobby Clark 100% has to start. These kind of games. You can put maybe 1 or 2 rotation players in. And when I say rotation, like, I don't look at Bobby Clark as a rotation player. He's a under 21 type of player. But someone like a Ben Doak, who's a rotation player, he should start. Whatever the situation is with an Endo or a Gravenberch, one of them should potentially start. And then you can, as I mentioned, the Jarell Kwanzaas, those type of players, get them playing. Kelleher obviously playing as well. Let's see that Costa Simicas and all that kind of stuff. Let's see those guys play in this kind of competition, rest them, because then straight after that on the Saturday, we've then got obviously Tottenham Hotspur at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. Again, Tottenham having a really, really good start, same level of points as Liverpool away. That will be a very, very tough game. I think that will be a tough game for Liverpool if obviously Tottenham continue, on this current trajectory that they're kind of on, playing really, really good football under Ange. Obviously got in Maddison, who's a very, very good player, doing bits for them. Obviously, we know they lost Harry Kane, so maybe that the focal point or that focal goal threat is gone, but they've still got Min Song. I think he's the captain now at Tottenham. Correct me if I'm wrong. So he's obviously still a very, very good player. So they're going to have problems for us. They're going to have problems for us in that game. I do envisage that game potentially being a draw or a defeat, actually. But let's wait and see. First of all, we don't know how things are going to pan out. Obviously, by that point, that's in the next 2 weeks anyway. So let's just wait and see. Let's just wait and see. And then we've got 5 days later, we've got Liverpool at home, their first home game of the Europa League against Union SG, who are a very, very decent team, actually. But again, like I mentioned before, it is genuinely for me about, that kind of rotation, being able to play certain players. Obviously, by then as well, as we kind of already know as well, with like certain players like a Thiago, for example. I'm not going to talk too much on him. I'll save that for another time. But players like a Thiago, we already know the situation with him, the injuries and stuff like that. Let's just hope this guy is back for at least that game. Do you know what I mean? Like, let's just hope he's back for then. And then we can kind of maybe... I even forgot him in the list of midfielders I was talking about. That's how much I don't really think about him too tough, because he's never here. Now he's Naby Keita's settings at this moment in time, which is really sad to see because he's such a top quality player. But, by this kind of time, beginning of October, this is when I expect Liverpool to, hopefully in this next batch of games that we have got, just to kind of kick themselves into gear and then obviously be able to move on from there. And then we've got last season, our bogey team, which is flipping Brighton at the Amex Stadium. Obviously, McAllister going back. I say the Amex Stadium, the American Express Community Stadium. Obviously, McAllister going back to his club. We saw what happened to us last season. Big up Hussam, the Ice Spice. Pambi on ice. That's where it was birthed. Would not been a happy hunting ground for in the last 12 months. Anyway, it's not really been a happy hunting ground for Liverpool. We have been bopped off the park by Brighton. I don't think Liverpool can go into the same game plan in that kind of fixture. We have to do something different, because I think they're going to come in the kind of same game plan. So we're going to need to do something different. Brighton look decent this season as well, in my opinion. I think they're kind of continuing on. I don't know what people expect for certain teams, because I know some people, like, obviously Brighton got spanked, I think, by West Ham not too long ago, and people were a bit shocked. But I was like, I give credit to West Ham in that game, and Brighton are like that. But we saw Brighton lose 5-0 against Everton, or 5-1 or whatever it was last season. So Brighton are that type of team. I don't expect them to make top 4 or anything like that, but I do expect them to get into Europe again this season, and then push on again. Got fantastic players. We know them, the Matomas of this world, player that's probably been sought after for God knows how long. Pascal Gross, Solly March, Lewis Dunk at the back there. They've got really decent players. João Pedro, obviously up front. Ivan Ferguson, the guy that it seems like everybody wants. I've heard talks of Manchester City potentially looking to sign someone like him. They're good players over there. So that will be a tricky game. But we'll obviously have to wait and see. And then we go to another, as I mentioned before, international break, the second one of the season. So if we look here, Liverpool have 1, 2, 3, 4 Premier League games. So by the end of this period, we'll have played 8 matches in total. Then we'll obviously have the 2 Europa League games, which are then sandwiched by the Carabao Cup games in this period of time. Again, by the end of this period, when we come back from the international break, obviously we've got Everton, which we'll obviously get into for the next monthly review. But when we finish this period of football with Brighton, hopefully we get that victory against Brighton. But it will give us more of an indication of the team. I think that's when we'll start looking at the team and start to, hopefully putting a few more pieces together in regards to Liverpool, in terms of how we're playing, certain players, how they're playing. Are certain players going to be, playing up to a standard? We've seen Szoboszlai, who's come in and had a decent start to his Liverpool career. Will he be able to keep that up? Who's going to get injured? Who's coming back from injury? all these various different things, scoring the goals. We know Mo Salah's played 4 games so far, 2 goals, 2 assists. Can he keep up that kind of ratio? Darwin Núñez got himself a couple of goals. Gakpo hasn't scored. Diaz scored a couple of goals. Can we keep up this kind of, this kind of ratio? And these kind of, would I say, maybe not so much performances. I do want the performances to go up a little bit, but in terms of, can we just get the points that we need, on the board? People in the chat, if I quickly share my screen again, just so you guys can kind of see what we've got coming up. Let me know in the chat what you guys in the chat. Let me know in the comment section, should I say, below. How many points do you think we'll get from this period of time? If I was to just guess right now, this is what I think will happen. Liverpool, Wolves. I think Liverpool get the 3 points. I'll say 3 points there. Lask away. Don't know why something's screaming draw to me. I don't know why. Like something's just screaming draw. Something's screaming draw. Something's screaming draw. First game, rotate a team away, 5:45. But then he's got the players in it. I'll say 3 points. I'll stick my neck out and say 3 points. West Ham game. At home. I'm gonna say draw. The I'm gonna say draw. It might change obviously as the month kind of progresses and West Ham might have key players injured, but right now I'm gonna say a draw. The Leicester game, I think he's gonna rotate. I can see Liverpool losing that game. I can really see Liverpool losing that game. The Tottenham game, I think we lose that game. I think Tottenham will do a number on us in that game. The Europa League game, I think that would be. I would go with a win. I think we'll win that game. And then the Brighton game, no idea. That's the end of the month, or that's the beginning of, or that's the last fixture. Sorry, that we've got. I will say a draw. I'll say a draw. So we've got draw, a victory, defeat, draw, a win, and a win here. That's what I think now. But things might that might change. Once we're doing the kind of the watch alongs, the watch alongs over there at the Jerry James show. But also just trying to think, at this early time in the season, you know what I mean? So we'll wait and see. We'll wait and see. But obviously, let me know in the comment section what you guys think. Leave your kind of predictions for this month, how you think this month is obviously going to go. If I had to give the previous month that we've just had, August, September, I would probably go with a 7.5 out of 10. I think 7.5 out of 10. I think it's been a decent month. We got the points on the board. We haven't lost the game. It's just really the performances. We have looked a bit shaky in some games as well. But 7.5, I think that's a decent score. You could push it to 8. I won't really be mad at an 8 out of 10, to be honest with you. But I'll go with 7.5, just purely based really on the performances that I've seen, from Liverpool. Again, let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Let me know if you think too low, too high. What rating would you guys give for that first period of football? And then also let me know in the comment section as well, how many points and how many games do you think Liverpool will win in the next batch of games before. Let me know what you guys think about that. I'm G. That is today's. Obviously, we've done a monthly review. We will be back next month to taking a look at the next batch of fixtures. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section. I'm G, and we outie people.